In this video, we're going to cover 4 different ways of making surfaces that go beyond your basic extrude, loft, revolve, and those type of tools. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to draw out a rectangle. What I want to do here is just explode all of these curves. And then I'm going to rebuild all of these. So we'll do a rebuild. We'll rebuild them with 4 points. Make sure delete input is selected. So click OK. And then we're going to go into our perspective view, and we're going to just move these points around to create curves that have a little bit more dimension. So I'm just going to go in and do this. Okay, so we have 4 different curves now, so I'm going to copy this over to make 4 sets of these. So the first tool we're going to go over is called a sweep 1. So if we go into our surface, and then we go into sweep 1 rail. So if we select our rail, that's going to be the first curve that we're using, and you'll see it automatically changes to ask for a cross-section curve. So it's going to ask for a cross-section curve. It also gives us the option to select multiple, but let's see what just happens if we do 1. So you'll see this menu pop up. I usually don't change a lot of these, so I just click OK. And you'll see what happens is I have a surface that follows along this profile. So if we copy this profile over, we should end up with the same thing. So whereas a simple loft between these two would give you just a straight surface, what the sweep 1 allows us to do, so if we do sweep 1 again, what that allows us to do is actually give it a section profile that it will also follow. So it will sweep the length of this line to make a duplicate of this line going across, and it will also allow you to give a cross section. So if we go into sweep 1 again, you can use this rail, and then you can also use 2 different section curves. So we'll click OK, and what that's going to do is the same thing. So we again have the same profile on these 2 sides, so that would be what we're calling our rail for the sake of the sweep 1. And then we're allowing ourselves to do 2 different section curves now. So if we look at this, then we can do what's called a sweep 2. So what sweep 2 will allow us to do is we selected our first rail, then we're going to select our second rail, then, and then it's going to automatically change to ask us for our cross-section curve. So if we select 1, again, this will pop up. That will give us 1 profile on this side that looks like that. It'll maintain our second rail on this side, and it will allow us to put a section curve into it. So again, if we didn't do this and we did a simple loft between here, we would look like that. So it would basically go 1 to 1, and it would just loft across there. Here what we're doing is allowing ourselves, and here we'll do 2 section curves. So what that'll allow us to do is actually dictate and bound the surface in section as well. So edge surface is going to be the next one. So if we go into our surface and we do edge curves, what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to do 4 different edge curves, and it will make a surface out of that. So this surface is roughly going to be equivalent to, it's very, very close to the equivalent of a sweep 2, where you're also bounding it with, so it's very similar to the sweep 2, where you have 1 rail over here, another rail, and then 2 section curves, so a totally bound surface. So if you do a sweep 2 and you fully bound it, it's going to be roughly the same as an edge surface. So here what we're going to do is the most advanced, so the one thing that we still don't have control over in this scenario is going to be anything that happens in the middle of this surface. So we're dictating what happens at the edges, and we're basically interpolating between those points. But we can also gain some control through the middle of this object. So I'm going to go ahead and divide these into sections. I'm just going to do a few. So we'll divide each into 3, and then I'm going to take curves and put them from point to point, turn off the near snap. So we'll go point to point here, and then actually hold on, let's do this only in one direction. So we'll rebuild these into 4, and we'll go ahead and move these points around to give it some sectional dimension. And then what I'll do is I will divide these into 3 as well. So now we have points also going in this direction. I'm going to take now my interpolate points tool, and we'll go through these points. And that did not go through the point, so make sure you're actually clicking to the point. So now you can see I basically constructed a wireframe for what I want this surface to look like. So now if I do a curve, it's called a curved network or a network surface. So network surface here, if you go into your surface menu, it's going to be called curved network. So we can automatically select all of the curves in the network. You'll see a menu come up like this. Again, I usually don't change all that much in here, so just click OK. And you'll see now that my surface actually will go through all of those curves that I've created. So this will give you the utmost control over your surface. Then what we can do is we can select our points, select point, delete those, and let's just go in for now and we'll delete these. And then if we turn our points on, this will give us even more control over our surface. So if we want to now change the way that this sort of sags in here, or we want even more fine control over this, we can change it here. If we take this surface and we rebuild it, we have this rebuild come up. You can rebuild it with very few. So if we click OK here, you'll see the less points I rebuild it with, the less resolution I'm going to get. So if we rebuild this now with 100 and 100, you'll see when I click on it I have quite a bit of definition, and then when I turn my points on I have a crazy amount of points. So just be careful of how much resolution you give this surface. So if we rebuild it and we say let's put 10 and 10, you'll see you lose a little bit of resolution, but then if you turn your points on it's a little bit more manageable. So that's how you would rebuild the surface, and how you would gain sort of full control over this object. So to recap, sweep 1 will allow you to select one rail. You can select as many profiles as you want. Sweep 2 will allow you to select 2 rails and as many cross-section curves as you want. Edge network or edge surface will allow you to select the 4 curves that are around your edge. And then curved network will allow you to actually place a wireframe in the middle that will help you to construct a totally custom surface.